Ashley, let's go to the hotline and bring in the head coach of the recently announced number 3 team in the 4A Division II rankings. We are joined by the head coach of the Waco Connally Cadets. We're joined by Coach Shane Anderson. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent. How are things in beautiful Waco, Texas?
They're unbelievable. 3-0 and getting ready for another week of high school football. Kind of our last test before we start district next week.
Yeah, I want to ask you about this past Friday night. You guys were, in a dogfight with China Spring, with a good China Spring squad. End up scoring the final 14 points of the game to bring home a victory. I'm interested, maybe, you're a guy who knows these guys. These are a lot of kids who have been in your program, for a while now. But do you feel like you learned something about your team on Friday night?
No, there's no doubt. We learned that we're pretty tough mentally. And that we can overcome adversity, in all shape, forms, and fashion, and that, our kids and coaching staff is very resilient.
Yeah, and one thing I'm interested in is that you guys, I think a lot of attention is going to be paid to a lot of the offense that you guys are able to put out. And I want to talk about some of your superstars coming up here in a moment. But this was the game where it seemed like your defense had to hold you guys in it, and you had to come up with big plays. Overall, through 3 games, how would you characterize the way that your defense is playing?
I think they're getting better and better each week. Our defensive coordinator, Clint Clayton, and his staff do a great job every week of putting our kids in position to be successful. And, last Friday night was no difference. Hats off to Coach Bell and those guys at China Spring. Did a great job of scheming us up, moving the ball up and down the field. But, we had 2 big 4th down stands in the first half and, to keep them out of the end zone and, kept it close. And that's what we talked to them at halftime. It was 14-7, and we just talked to them about keeping it close. If we kept it close, we felt like down the stretch that, some of our athletes would make plays, and that's exactly what happened.
One of those athletes is your outstanding running back, Javion Sunday, a guy who I think finally the state is starting to pay attention to this kid, because he was incredible last year, and he's already off to a great start. He runs for 102 yards in the fourth quarter, and 2 touchdowns in the final 7-12. I think we see the numbers, we see the highlights, things like that. But you're the guy who gets to see Javion Sunday every day in practice and every day around school. What is it about this young man that makes him special?
First and foremost, he's one of the hardest working kids that I've ever been around, and he's a weight room junkie. He's in the weight room before school. He's in the weight room after practice. Comes up on Sundays while we're working, and coach can his weight room open, and so he comes up and he just spends a lot of time. And I think mentally for him, he feels like the more time he spends in the weight room, the better off his results are on Friday night. He's super strong kid and very, very physical kid, and he's had to overcome a lot of adversity in his life and to get to where he's at today, and to be committed to the University of Washington and knowing that he's going to get to go play for Chris Peterson in that program from where he was a few years ago is just unbelievable testament to not only our coaching staff but to Javion himself.
We're talking with Shane Anderson, the head coach of the Connally Cadets here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TF Today. Another thing I'm interested in is in that game, you guys seem to kind of limit his carries, his workload in the early going. Is that going to be a strategy? I mean, this is a kid who carried the ball 300 times last year. He's certainly a workhorse, but are you guys mindful of managing his workload a little bit?
Yeah, actually, Friday night he got popped pretty good one time, and so he was a little bit shaken, and we were a little bit unsure of his status. It wasn't anything we planned. We knew the game was close, and so we weren't going to put him back out there unless we really, really needed him. And so we knew if we could get into halftime and keep it a 1-score game. And I talked to him at halftime, and he's like, "Coach, I'm fine." And I said, "Well, let's get out there." And we kind of took a strategy of if he was going to run the ball, we put him in. If he wasn't going to run it and our quarterback was going to run it, we put somebody else in to block for our quarterback, just to try to protect him a little bit. And then we got to the fourth quarter, and he said, "Hey, Coach, I'm good. Let's go." And so it wasn't anything we were trying to do as far as limit his carries. It was just kind of how the cookie crumbled. And, he just happened to score those last 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and rush for over 100 yards. And, like I said, he's a tough dude, and, just glad he's on our team. But, we are trying to limit his carries as far as, we talked to him all summer about if we can get to week 11 with, around 120, 150 carries, we feel like we can ride him through the playoffs.
The other guy I know on your roster that catches a lot of attention is Corey Black. This is a guy who's a two-way superstar, a guy who's got multiple D1 offers, a guy who's I think pops off the page whenever you watch his highlights. I'm interested in how you choose to deploy him, because it seems like you could put him at basically any position outside of offensive tackle, and he would be pretty effective. What goes into deciding how best to use this outstanding playmaker?
We talk to all of our kids really about, at this level, you got to put your best 11 kids on the field. And, we have him, and then we have Kavian Gaither, our junior quarterback and a strong safety. And then we have Marcus Long, who's a junior. And then Parrish Cox, who plays corner and spot plays on offense. And then we actually have a lineman in Brian Williams that plays both sides of the ball quite frequently. And so, we got a lot of kids that play both sides of the ball. With Corey, the biggest deal is we know that anytime he has the ball in his hands, that he can go score. And, he had a bunch of big plays the other night to get us, in great field position and kind of flip the field. And, so we just try to pick and choose the moments and try to get some one-on-one matchups with him and the defense, and, just try to get the ball in his hands as much as we can, without wearing him totally out. But, we got to have him on defense, and, like I said, we try to, pick and choose our moments as far as getting him the ball.
So you guys, I want to talk a little bit about expectations, because some magazine ranked you guys number 6 in 4A Division II to start the year. That is obviously paying attention to the build that you guys have had there in your 4 years. Obviously trending in the right direction, but with that type of attention comes expectations. I'm interested in what your message has been to your guys, knowing full well that I'm sure you guys are getting more attention now than you've had the past couple of years. So what's been your message within your program about managing those expectations?
Like I tell the local media, each week in our local newspaper that covers us, we're not scared to talk about our goals. And, I think any time that you have a group of kids that invest as much as these kids do and work as hard as these kids work, and a staff that works as hard as this coaching staff works, it has worked over the last couple of years to kind of turn this program around and put it back on the map, so to speak. We talk about our goals daily, and our goal, obviously is to we have 4 major team goals of making the playoffs, winning a district championship, practicing on Thanksgiving, and playing in December. And those 4 goals, if you achieve all 4 of those goals, you've had a heck of a season. We walked off the field last year against Pleasant Grove and, fought them tooth and nail. And we knew when we walked off the field, if we had the off season in the summer that we were supposed to have and we should have with the guys we had coming back, that, it would potentially set us up for, what we hope is a 4th-round matchup with those guys if we can take care of business and win our district. And I think the winner of that will have a chance to go win the whole thing. That's just being as honest as I can and not being cliche or holding anything back. And we've talked about that with our kids over and over again. The problem with all that is we play in a really, really tough district, and you got to come to play every week, and you climb this deal. And we talked about, climbing the ladder as a team and getting to where we want to go and getting to that December 20th at 3 p.m. in the afternoon at Cowboy Stadium. And we talk about that weekly. And while talking about that, we try to focus, on being 1-0 each week. And, we just got to keep getting better and keep doing the things that we know we can do and control the things we can control. There's some things that are going to happen along the way that we can't control, injuries, things of that nature, weather, different things. But we have to be ready for when those things happen, to handle that adversity. But we do talk quite frequently about where we want to be and what we want to do to get there. So I said we're not really hiding anything as far as that goes.
You mentioned your district, and we knew it was going to be good. I would say that through 3 weeks, it has maybe even exceeded those expectations. Robinson has looked very good. Fairfield off to an undefeated start. I think that Lorena and Salado, I think, also kind of in that mix. Plus, when the teams that are struggling in your district are teams like Mejia and Madisonville, you know that it's going to be tough every week. I'm interested kind of from your perspective of when you take a look at what you're up against. I know you got a little bit of time before then, but when you take a look at what you're going to be up against in District 8, 4A Division 2, what do you see from your perspective?
I see 6 really good football teams along with us in that district, and like some of those ones you mentioned. You can't get really caught up in the non-district schedule of what they're doing. Like I said, because we all know each other. We've played for them. Besides really Madisonville, we've all been in the same district since I've been here, so we know each other kind of like the back of our hand, and we know what you're going to get each week. And it's a lot of fun to scheme up on the weekends and to try to put your kids in good position to make plays on Friday night. But we're going to open up that first game with Salado, and that's a team that have kind of been our bugaboo, so to speak. We haven't been able to get over the hump with those guys. And then Coach Allen Hare and that slot T, I tell you what, they're tough to stop. And that's a big challenge up front. And then you go with defending district champs Lorena and Coach Biles and those guys. They're young, but you know what you're going to get each and every week with those guys, and they're going to continue to get better. And they had a huge win the other night against Lampasas, and for him starting 9 or 10 sophomores, it's going to be a really special group there in Lorena. And then you mentioned Robinson, the firepower they have on offense. I think he has 30 or 31 seniors in this group, which at our level is unheard of. And his youngest son is in that class, so it's a tight-knit group. That he's close with those kids and his staff's close with those kids, and so they're gonna handle the highs and lows and ride the roller coaster through the season. And we don't play them until week 10, and there's a lot of good teams, a lot of good football players in our district, a lot of great coaching staffs, and we just got to make sure that we show up and understand that we got a big old target, and every time we move up the ladder, in the rankings, that target gets bigger and the spotlight gets bigger, and we just got to make sure we don't drop the ball and cross T's and dot I's.
And finally, one last question for Shane Anderson, the head coach of the Connally Cadets here on Texas Football Today. You got a game this week. You guys can't look past your squad this week. You're taking on a Gatesville squad that I think, despite being 0-3, this is me editorializing, I would say is better than their record indicates. They've played an extremely tough schedule. I'm not going to ask you to give away your game plan here, but when you take a look at what you're up against on Friday night with Gatesville, what are you seeing?
You're seeing, a football team that's getting better each week. A new head coach and Coach Howard coming in there this year and then taking over a program that Kyle Cooper had built there. They have, they're a young team, and but like I said, they're getting better each week. And like you said, they played an extremely tough 3 games so far, and they've shown signs of being able to score some points and being able to get some stops. And the thing for us is we got to go to Gatesville, and those kids are hungry over there, and they're looking for that first win under Coach Howard, and they're going to do everything they can to make that happen Friday night. And it wouldn't nothing make them happier than to knock off a state-ranked team like us. And so we've got to make sure we're ready to go. We've got to have a great week of practice, and we're going to really, really try to focus back on the fundamentals, with this being our last game before district starts. And we want to make sure that we're blocking and tackling and executing at a high level.
He is Shane Anderson. He is the head coach of the 3-0 Waco Connally Cadets. Coach, really appreciate your time. Congratulations on the win on Friday night, and best of luck this week and down the road.
Thank you guys for having us on, and look forward to talking to y'all soon.
Absolutely. There he goes, Shane Anderson, the head coach, Connally Cadets, joining us here on Texas Football Today. Appreciate him taking a little bit of time. And yeah, I mean, look, still work to be done. And we've talked about this team kind of from the beginning, that this is one of those teams that if you want to buy in on a team that of having that kind of top end talent, they undisputedly have that top end talent.
Yep.
The question is going to be, Can they put it all together for as long as they want? And I think that that was one of the interesting questions I asked about, not to kiss my own butt about my question, but what I'm saying is that it seems like they're trying to manage Javion Sunday's workload.
Sure.
Because 300 carries, guys, is a lot of carries. That is to use a medical term, that is a buttload of carries.
Yeah. And we've seen running backs, wear down over the course of a season. Obviously, I guess the workload is naturally, I guess, their junior, sophomore year when they don't really know what they have potentially, and then they see, and it's like, okay, senior, at the year after the junior, their senior year, let's manage this guy. Let's figure out what we know his talent, we know what he can do, we know what he can sustain, and let's kind of work from there. We saw with DeMarco Foster last year. We've seen it with these type of rushers that put up big numbers on big workloads there next year. The workload is nearly not as much because they know what they can do, and they know that they don't need to rush them out there for sometimes 4 quarters.
That's exactly right. So we appreciate Shane Anderson of Waco Connally hopping on with us. Excited to see what the Cadets do this week. I think they'll be favored this week against Gatesville, and then it's a week off, and then right into the teeth of that district. Be a lot of fun. So.